with a friend with a weird accent who no one recognizes. Hello. From a weird country, but you never know, because that is the joke. All you know is I am a foreigner, but you don't know which foreigner I am.
Jim Dramatic, the Muppets edition.
Hello there, Jim Dramatic here. Welcome to an episode of my episode review podcast, and we're on Heat H of Series 6. An episode that I'm going to be off the bat not the biggest fan of, but we got a lot of stuff to talk about at least, so that'll be very interesting. Can't imagine why I don't like this episode. But joining me today is, I guess I'm kind of doing a news night kind of thing. I've got a pro and against side for this heat, I guess. On the pro side, who was a guy who somehow has never been on my episode review podcast until now, officially, but he's making his debut. It's Oliver. Hello there.
Hello. Hey. I'm gonna clarify here. I didn't say I was entirely pro this heat. I just don't think it deserves all the hate it gets. I don't think it's that bad. But
No, I understand.
I'm looking forward to discussing it. I actually quite enjoyed rewatching this one.
No, I get your point of view, but I mean, I was saying pro in relative terms, because
I suppose.
Anti this episode is my, he's been on this many times now, and yet ranting still comes to him naturally. It is Anderson9132. Hello there.
Hi there, Oliver. Just want to say that's exactly what the woke agenda would say. But there we go.
You would say that. Grow up.
Grow up.
It's 2023. It's 2023.
This coming from a 6'2" toddler. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, sure. Catch up with the times, Grandad.
Oh. I'm actually old man. It was my it was for those listening. It was my 29th birthday this Saturday just gone.
That's what he tells himself. It was actually his 89th.
Shut up.
Yes, this is a very lively set of guests I have here, of course. But Heat H. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say I'm not the biggest fan of this episode. I mean, yeah. I mean, given the Heat winner, I'm very, very happy about this episode. But I'm trying a different format this time. I'm going to talk about the battles with the robots at the same time, but also, since we'll have less to talk about with the robots that went out first, and kind of building up from there, it's best to start with the robots that go out first instead. So, who to pick from out of these ones? I think I might as well go with Hot Pants, because it got the funniest name. Hot Pants, of course, this was the Pain team in Series 2, I believe?
No, it was Pandemonium.
Oh, it's Pandemonium. I'm getting mixed up with Spam, I think, here. Oh, yeah, sorry. It was Pandemonium, sorry, yes. Hot Pants. The disco ball, for a start, is the best part of this robot, to be honest with you.
I would know all about that, because I was around in the 70s, apparently.
Oh, you were, yes.
So I don't know what to make about Hot Pants, because on the one hand, it looks kind of interesting. It's got that nice big pickaxe, a fun gimmick. The team seemed to definitely be having fun with it. But on the other hand, it was really rubbish.
It was a bit shit, wasn't it?
It was
I mean,
Pants.
it's just Excalibur at home, lads. Let's be real here. It's Excalibur at home. And the thing is, I love the ant weight pants.
Oh yeah, Pants is funny.
And was it pink pants in Extreme 2? I think.
Extreme 2, because in Extreme 1 it got leaked out of the arena at 10 seconds by a combat ant.
Yes, but I think it came second, or third in the
it got in the top
Extreme
4.
2 one. It was actually doing quite well in that one, but yeah, but this one lost because if I'm right in thinking, its removable link fell out after it swung its axe down.
Once, yeah, it did one axe swing and it died. And it took about Refbot about a minute.
A bit of a design flaw.
It took Refbot like a minute to even notice it was dead. Like, even John Pierce, like, of course, in his typical worldly wisdom of being very, astute with his observations, just kind of went, oh, it's died next to the arena wall. No, it did. It died a minute ago when it tried to use its weapon, JP. But
I think some of the other robots were still pushing it around the arena. Yeah, so I think the one thing Hassock's Hog did in the whole fight was a half lift on Hot Pants after it was already dead. Spam was going after it was already dead, and then the last hit was from Ming grabbing its weapon again after it was already dead. So yeah, it's one of those things that just happens, the link popping out, and
it's unfortunate.
Do I think it would have made it out of the first round? Probably not, but yeah. There you go. It's Hot Pants, and the team themselves, I think, are a bit more interesting than the robot. It's just sort of clear polycarb box. If you're going with the disco theme, you could at least go all out with it.
Yeah, the
I
team did at
definitely
least. Anyway,
agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
didn't was it Series 5 had was it Seal Avenger won best costume or something, or best
Yes.
did they ever do that for Series 6? Because these guys would have been contenders.
Sure. I don't know they did. I think they should have done. I think they should have done that every series.
Because some
Because
people really came
especially
with some good
especially in
stuff.
the US series, every team had a costume for some reason. It was really weird.
Yeah,
We could
It's a shame.
retroactively reward it. I'm trying to think of any other good costumes from this
there
series.
was Ming. Ming
I was going to
the
say
there was
Ming this episode, but
there was the creepy guy in the mask from Tridente.
oh that
That would
guy
have won my
that guy
vote
was
because I'm
weird.
all for
Yeah, that was a good
that. That
one.
looked like a slasher movie villain. That would have been sick. Um,
There weren't too many really crazy costumes this season, though. I think what I can
maybe
think
not.
of.
no, the more I think of it, more a sort of Series 7, the sort of Agrobot team,
Oh,
the
going full leather.
Grim Reaper, the Grim Reaper team, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was some fun teams in the earlier series, but like who came up with costumes. But yeah, I think most famous is probably Steel Avenger, just for the amount of times they appeared.
There was one. The problem with hot pants. Sorry, going back to the topic at hand, was it follows two very awful rules. One, it had a removable link, and as we all know, and as the Americans have always said, you need switches, not removable links. And most importantly, it went into the arena with wheels, and you can't have
Yeah.
wheels in the arena.
Can't bring
We all
wheels
know
into the arena.
this. Jonathan
No.
Pierce, the wise sage, said it, so we know this.
It's kind of a shame, really.
Genuinely,
'Cause-
I think the other...
Yeah.
Gone.
No, I was going to say it's kind of a shame, really, because remember this robot. I mean, even I fell guilty into the trap of making the jokes about the robot on the team. Is that this robot was like at one point considered like the whole reason why Series 3 got fucked over because of that one robot that broke a team or something, like hurt someone's foot or something. And like everyone seemed to think it was them. And I will admit, I will apologise for ever spreading that misinformation, but I just presumed that because everyone else seemed to say it was. But it turns out it was
Yeah,
the robot entirely, you know?
Yeah, a lot of people think it was more Pandemonium, which was their Series 3 competitor. Apparently, it was dropped and it shot someone in the head foot with its spike, but it didn't. Apparently, the actual robot was apparently. It sounds really cool, actually. It's kind of shame we didn't see it, but I'm kind of glad we didn't because it was obviously unsafe. But basically, imagine it was designed to look like a hedgehog, and all the spikes on it were basically scaffolding pipes that had been cut at an angle.
Ooh, right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get you.
That does sound good.
And apparently it went rogue and charged at someone and broke a wall and all that. And thanks to that, we didn't have half the side events of Series 3. So cheers, whoever the hell who was who made that, you dick. I'm joking, that's probably not your fault, but still.
1999.
I mean, talking of a hedgehog, that would be a really good segue into another robot if we were done talking about hot pants. But there's a couple more things that I want to observe.
I'll go on then.
First up, again, we're talking about the design of it and the actual weaknesses with it. I think for me, just looking at it, it's where the axe is hinged. It didn't get very much in terms of a hit, but the way that it then hits, it can't really get anything on the wedge and then hit it. I mean, there's a reason that so many axes in the years since have been hinged a little bit higher, but. Again, it's a wedge, but I think the important thing to notice is Pete Collier, team captain, who is one of 3 Roboteers from this heat who are still active in some form in the community. Of course, he's gone on to be very, very successful in Ants and has recently started tinkering around with Beetles. He was at a couple of Bristol events last year.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's pretty cool.
He had a couple of robots. I think one of them was a might have been a Vert. I don't remember. The one I do remember is he had a little red lifter called At Long Last, because at long last he was getting into Beetles. But no, he's very, very well established in the ant scene even to this day.
That's pretty cool to hear, honestly. I love hearing like all Roboteers who are still in it. You know.
Humble beginnings.
Yeah. Actually, before we do move on, you mentioned the axe. Actually, there is actually a screenshot on the wiki where it's going in the pit, and I didn't realize how long the axe is. It looks like it's almost as long as the robot itself. Like it's quite a big axe with a long arc. So I don't really know what it was going to hit, like you mentioned. But yeah. Also, a bit of a shout out to Big Pants, which was their Series 4 failed to qualify into, which is basically the same robot, but more of a kind of yellowish colour, orangey colour. And actually, I think it actually even had side protection as well. Looking from the picture of it, which is actually they didn't bring wheels into the arena in Series 4, so that's and they didn't get in, which That changes
but
the
it
theory
looked
or
more
not.
interesting. It had a panda on it.
It did have they are Team Panda
I
after
mean,
all.
if something's got a panda on it, it automatically should qualify for anything against us because pandas are awesome.
It was the first time they actually used the theme though, because they called it Pandemonium Series 2, and there was like no
Yeah,
panda.
but it looked fuck all like a panda.
Yeah,
I
never got the name. I never got that name.
I mean, I don't know what the hell they were thinking, to be honest.
I don't know. It's like they made it more of a panda in Series 4, which was the third series they entered for, but whatever. Details. You did mention...
He died under neutrino pressure.
Yeah. Now, you did actually mention hogs, and yes, of course, we got the robot that apparently has a thing for Matilda, according to the team. It is the Hassock's hog.
That never factored in at all.
No, it didn't whatsoever, no.
Didn't factor in whatsoever. And yeah, this one is the second robot of the night to have a pair of pants drawn on it. Yes!
Yeah, it's true.
This really was a pants heat.
Was this on the on the second on the second version, or was it on this series version as well? I can't remember. Because the pants are definitely on the Series 7 one.
The pants were definitely on the Series 6 one. It was underneath the robot they were drawn on. They were painted on the underneath of the robot.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah, they showed it off.
Yeah, I know this is one of those robots. Apart from the nice aesthetic, I guess I don't really have a lot to say about the Hassock's hog. Really, even in the fight, it didn't really. It kind of just existed, and then it died on one side, and then got.
Looking at it going in, you'd think, oh, this robot will probably go through because it's a sort of generic rear hinge flipper in the mold of the Iron Ore of this series. But yeah, I like I said before, it got one half lift on a dead hot pants, and kind of was just there in the action, but not participating in any real meaningful way. I think when I watched this the first time, I was thinking, oh, it's doing all right, but actually going back and focusing on it specifically, we're not shown anything specific that it really does in any aggressive way.
No, I mean the lifter itself wasn't all that powerful either. It just sort of just lifted a tiny bit. It wasn't like it wasn't again. Iron Ore at least has like a decent flipper on it, but I don't know.
The team themselves admitted it was more of a lifter than a flipper.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
For me, it's quite an odd one because obviously a lot of hard work went into it. You know, the imagery and the fur ears and the look and all that, which is wonderful. But it's also somehow, despite all that, one of the most forgettable robots ever. I actually forgot it was in this heat. And you know me, I've got a memory for this stuff. But I actually forgot it was in this heat.
Because it probably doesn't do anything. That's probably why.
Well, yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it lost because it just went around in circles.
Yeah, because the drive chain came loose. That's the only reason they got knocked out, really. I mean, I will give them some credit though. They actually thought to put a self-writer on it because there's so many flippers who didn't think of that and then couldn't self-write. Colossus, who they actually put a self-write. I mean, I don't know. I shouldn't be praising robots putting a self-write in Series 6, but there's low bar for some robots in this series. So I'll give them that.
There is some interesting trivia though about this machine, if you don't mind me going through it.
I don't mind.
So, first of all, it could have potentially, in Series 7, been the first robot to represent France in an international competition. Because the team captain, and to be honest, you can tell by the name, Noel Poncelet, sorry.
Poncelet.
It looks like Poncelet.
Lord
Poncelet. I think it's actually pronounced Poncelet or something like that, but it looks like Poncelet, which is mental.
Poncelet is most politicians, isn't it?
He was, or his, I'm hoping he's still around, is half French. So, yes, was meant to be representing... But he was approached for Series 7 at the potential idea, but nothing ever came of it. And second of all, they were very good friends with the Killer Carrot team. And
that doesn't surprise me too much, really.
Yeah, well, but they both came from the same county, West Sussex. And the team captain of the Killer Carrot team painted the Hassock's Hog logo for them, which was very nice of them. So, yeah.
That does make sense.
Always nice to see teammates getting together, and Roboteers having fun together, isn't it?
That makes sense, particularly the Series 7 version of Killer Carrot has some nice paintwork on it.
Yes.
So that does actually show.
But if you take a look at that and compare it to the sort of same imagery that Killer Carrot had that series, you can sort of see similar artistic styles as well.
Yeah.
I think that is the one. think is the one saving grace of this robot. Is it is artistic. I speak differently from Anderson in the sense that I do remember this robot, even though it never once got a win in its career. It looked competent enough that I kind of forgot that.
See, for me, I remembered the Series 7 version, but I just never remembered the Series 6 version. And you would remember it because you watched this heat earlier.
Well, also in Series 7, it did get like set on fire and stuff, and like chucked out the arena by Mr. Psycho. It went out in a much more memorable fashion than kind of.
Yeah, but it did even less. That's the upsetting thing.
Yeah, no, but I remember.
Better looking robot. It did nothing.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna remember a robot gets burnt though.
Oh yeah, true.
Especially when like Dietor was missing and there was nothing else for Sergeant Bash to do. And seeing any robot get set on fire is usually memorable in the later series. But yeah, there's not much to say about Hassock really. It's a nice robot that's not the worst. It's not offensive. It's just kind of there. But I haven't really got anything negative about it really. I think that's the ultimate problem. I haven't got a lot to say about it itself. I think we spend more time talking about the team than the robot.
These are the first round robots. We're not going to have a huge amount.
Well, I know the robot will have actually virtually nothing to talk about. Is Short Circuit potentially?
Well, it was rubbish. I mean, what else can I say? I'll give it this. I mean, they kind of went somewhere with the gimmick. They tried to make it look like a circuit board. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's. Also, it
fell apart being pushed in the pit for crying out loud. I mean, what else do you want me to say about it?
Apparently, they did actually. They were not selected for Series 8.
What?
With an unspecified robot, and they also weren't selected for Series 3 and 4 either. So these guys have tried to enter a few times actually, and this is their only successful robot.
Well, this is really the one thing of interest that I have to bring up about this robot is that the team captain Nathaniel Pope is still somewhat active in the community. I think he's active more in sort of the ant and the feather space in particular, which is not somewhere that I'm particularly familiar with. But he's still around. He runs the Team SC Facebook page, and he does a lot of machining services and things for other robots. So I know, for instance, Scott Anderson has gotten bulkheads and bits and bobs CNC'd and sorted from Nathaniel for Attitude Adjuster, the Beetle weight.
Actually, there's one also thing I've learned just because of thanks to the trivia section on the wiki. Apparently, because of his father, he possibly owns the only barrel from Series 2 left from the pinball.
Oh damn, that's cool.
Which is kind of that's really cool.
That's sick, yeah. Like, I can hear Oliver's heart fluttering right now.
But
Oliver loves a cheeky pinball. Bless him. It gets him. You know, we let him play with it if he behaves himself.
But here's the thing, though.
Well done, Oliver. You got 5 points there, mate. Keep going, bud. Keep going.
You always said it failed to qualify for Series 4 and 5. They weren't called Short Circuit in that series. It was called Natter Patterbot. It's derived from the two team members, Nathaniel and Patrick. So it's Natter Patterbot.
Sounds like something out of In the Night Garden.
Apparently, Nathaniel also conceptualized a new robot for Series 7 named Sandwich, which I'm all for.
I'm up for a robot that's called Sandwich, definitely.
Yeah, but unfortunately, he was going to uni and couldn't. He said apparently, as of 2019, he still has all the parts for it, but it's so outdated it wouldn't be worth it. So that's pretty interesting.
But I mean, the robot itself exists, right? We've only once talked about the actual robot, apart from the fact it looks like a circuit. Because there isn't.
I mean, this is the thing about Short Circuit. It literally is so. I mean, this is no offense to Nathaniel or any. I mean, like I said, I'm harsh as hell, but I'm. No offense to the people who built them, but it wasn't very. I mean, its most memorable thing is the fact that it fell apart in its fight. It got split in half, literally, by Supernova, and then fell apart when it got pushed down the pit. I mean, what else can you say?
Also, one thing, it's really light. 81 kilos for Series 6.
Jesus.
Is pretty low. Like, most robots don't go lower than, 90 in this series for the most part. Like, Supernova's 95. Like, we see Supernova next to them. Supernova is 14 kilograms heavier than them. And I don't know where the weight's going to on Short Circuit. Where it wasn't, because Like also that weapon at the little disc thing. Like I think it spanned like one rev per minute at most. I actually thought Supernova broke the disc. There's a shot of it where it's leaving the CPZ when the Supernova's got hold of Tiberius has got hold of Supernova, and it's already falling off. So I don't know what happened.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh right, yeah.
it's already falling out. It's in the wiki. Well, they didn't picture of it in the wiki, but it's actually falling out properly, like when Supernova was hitting it before Supernova got hold of it. That wasn't Supernova. That was just the disc that fell out.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it was attached, but yeah,
I have started going down the rabbit hole of the archived team website from the bottom of the wiki page. So it's a classic 2001 website. You know, your Times New Roman and Arial text and everything in coloured boxes. It's almost like a personal blog. It's actually quite interesting to read about him trying to reach out to Derek Foxwell.
Has it got some spinning word art at the top and the bottom of the page?
If there was any spinning word art, it's not been preserved on the Wayback Machine, unfortunately.
The text is still preserved, though, and oh boy, is it very 2001. My God. As I used to remember browsing for those websites, trying to find any like clips of Robot Wars back when things weren't up online. God damn. I remember that. That's bad nostalgia right there. But, yeah, so yeah, Short Circuit. Yes. Anyway, well... Move on to robot I actually have something to talk about is Tiberius 3, aka the unluckiest first round loser in a while, I'd say.
Yes,
very much so.
This was probably the saddest one. Obviously, of course, Sam Smith famous for being the driver of Carbide in the reboot series.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it either. Have you heard of Cobalt?
No. Only, I mean, no, definitely not. No.
No, I've never heard of it either.
No, I mean, I've heard of Huge and Ribot.
I mean, it's a Brit spinner, so you know everyone's heard of it.
Yeah, I think like when has a Brit ever made a good spinner? Come on.
We'll just forget about Monsoon then. That's fine.
Yeah.
But no, Tiberius 3. This was sad because Spam was in the same fight as this, and they still got out. No. Spam wasn't in their fight, sorry, but it was
no. It was Spawn again.
Supernova and Short Circuit, yeah. Sorry. But yeah,
it's a shame, but it was actually fair. I didn't realise this when I watched this as a kid and watched it on repeat viewings and all that. I used to I swore it was a case of Spawn again flipped it, and then that flip made its removable link fall out. But it actually, if you look closely, you can see it's dead before Spawn again flips.
Oh, yeah.
And what basically happens is there's a long shot, and you see Supernova literally drive halfway across the arena and hit it and smack it really hard, and that's what kills it. So it's not even a case of Spawn again got lucky in that sense. It's just literally a case of Supernova hit it once and that was it. It's like,
It also got lucky because I think that was one of only 3 flips that Spawn again does in the whole heat.
Yes.
Actually, 4 maybe. 4 if you discount the one in the second round where it didn't flip Spam.
It was the only one it did in the entire first round battle.
Yeah, and it didn't even mean anything after all that time, apparently.
Yes. It could have literally just continued farting around the arena and it would have been fine because that thing was dead anyway.
Yeah, I will say, we are going to about the Spawn again bit, but I've just got to say, when I was watching this fight, I forgot it was in the fight for so long. Because Tiberius was running around, actually grabbing into Supernova. Even Short Circuit was doing more. Like, actually trying to get into the action.
You don't see it until that flip.
No, it was in the corner just dicking about. I think that's all it was doing. But Tiberius has actually been stepping up to be the main character of the episode, and then bang, it's out in like 2 seseconds. If only Supernova hit Spawn again.
It performed very well though in this fight. It got a good crush on Supernova. Its beak got a little bit bent, but I mean, who hasn't?
It did hit Supernova's weapon, in fairness.
Yes, exactly.
That was a pretty bad one.
I mean, honestly, at the opening minute of this fight, you'd be sure that this and Supernova would be going through.
But apparently not. It's a shame also because in like Series 5, they had to go. They were unlucky enough to go against Panic Attack. You know, a robot that's like just like a very decent counter against them. And
can I just point out something? We're now 8 robots into this, and we still have yet to find anything that backs up Oliver's claim that this is an okay episode.
That is a
All
point.
right, hold on. You two have been chatting
Hold
away.
on.
This is actually this is
I'm waiting, mate. I'm waiting. Come on.
your Zimmer
Hey,
frame is
what
right
do?
there.
Sod off.
Yeah, this is genuinely where sort of my defense of this starts. Like I say, I'm
Oh,
not going to claim this is one of the best
that's
series
convenient. That's convenient. Yeah.
with Tiberius. Because we've all just been talking about how unlucky it was and how great of a show it was putting on, how great a fight this has been up to this point. And I do genuinely think this is quite a good fight. There's a lot to say about Tiberius. Its Crusher was actually doing a lot more in this fight than Ming's was in the first one. It was getting a real decent bite on its opponents. And something else I want to pick out with it is I think it was doing some kind of ablative armor as well. So
Yes.
all around the base of it, it's got big, thick panels of polycarbon, potentially something underneath that, and ramming rear end into Supernova. Really quite the sort of the strategic move. And yeah, okay, Spawn again disappears for a large portion of the fight.
It
But then
doesn't
shows
turn
up
for a large
bit of-
portion of it, to be fair.
There is no fight when it flips. There is no fight.
It turns up. It's a bit unexpected. I personally quite enjoyed this fight, and I quite enjoyed Tiberius's role in this fight. And is it one of the greatest fights of all time? No, it is one of the fights of all time.
It's definitely
But
a
it is
fight. I'll call it that.
It is definitely a fight, but I don't know. I got something from this. I took away something from this.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed Tiberius's role as well. Its front roll as it got flipped over. Hear that? Absolute silence there. No, actually, I will give it this much, and I'll give Spawn again this as well. It was without a doubt one of the most stylish flips I've seen. I mean, it like not only the fact that it managed to get Tiberius essentially to do a roly poly, but it also did the back roll itself. That was quite nice. But other than that, yeah, no, this didn't really do it for me. I mean, it was okay, but it could have been better.
Now, I think Spawn Again's role in this fight is kind of the equivalent of like you wake someone up for 1 second, they kind of go, I'm here, and just like go to sleep again. Like get Grandpa's off his meds.
I'm all too used to that at bingo. That happens to me all the time at bingo. That does.
The pills have kicked in.
Yeah, I mean, we will get to Spawn again in greater detail later, and they were clearly having a rough time of it this heat. But I don't like I say the battle up to that point between Tiberius and who else was fucking in this heat? I should know this.
Short Circuit and Supernova.
Short Circuit and Supernova. Particularly between Supernova and Tiberius. I thought it was quite good. It was taking the hits quite well. It was getting into some bites, but Supernova gyrating around and delivering some blows. And then again, the sort of unexpected end to the fight. I genuinely think you can't say this fight is terrible. And does that make the heat? No, but it's a good starting point.
You are definitely the voice of reason, Oliver.
He's not chatting shit. We both know it.
Well, okay. We'll talk. All right. I want to see if you can defend this then. Let's talk about spam, shall we?
It's a biscuit tin with a pokey thing on it. Next.
Okay, I'm right. This definitely was the Pain team, a robot who didn't actually make it into the war zone because it didn't move, and then they've entered. No, I think it was Judge Mech, but they just didn't qualify, that's fair enough. That didn't bother me too much, but I will say one thing I noted actually. I was watching the episode. Is that their interview was like 2 seconds long.
Yes.
She said like, what you plan to do? Oh, it's been a plastic, so it's gonna break, and she's like, all right, see you later. that was the interview. She didn't even like properly. She's just like, I'm done. See ya. Okay.
There was some definite, and I'm not saying this to be mean, but there were some definite substances being used in the design of this. Okay, so I've got this great idea, yeah, right? We're gonna get these 2 flywheels, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's really fast spinning destructive weapons, yeah, and we're gonna have them inside the robot and power a fork.
Brilliant.
Why?
I don't know.
What fucking idea?
I mean, this is how Blip was formed. Obviously.
Yes,
Well,
but at least that made sense, and it was using better technology. I mean, I'll give credit where credit's due for ingenuity, I suppose, but I mean, no.
actually, I
It's
mean,
it's
this
a
is.
pokey thing. It's a twig. I don't get it.
I mean, it's a low bar, by the way. But I've got to say, they did better than the last robot. It moved,
Well,
and
it
it
moved.
absolutely
Yeah,
worked.
fair enough. I'll give it that much.
Actually,
But
I think this robot comes
no.
under a certain category for me of it worked, but it still wasn't good.
Yes.
Like it did everything it was supposed to do, and it still wasn't that good. It's like it's a little bit like Rick for me. It
now,
functions.
we could easily gloss over its first round fight because let's be honest, it did nothing. I mean, literally nothing. It is nothing the robot in that fight. But there was another fight, unfortunately, that it took part in.
Oh, the one where it decided to commit end life and went into the pit.
Yes. Now, I just want to say at this point, you know me, I've watched Robot Wars since the year 2000. I was just before I turned the age of 6. There you go. So well over 20 years now of robot combat knowledge and well, not so much experience, but you know, as a viewer at least, experience. And I've never had a fight give me as much of a brain aneurysm as Spam versus Spawn again. Because I what? I don't even know what happened. Like, Spam had it. This thing, this tuna tin with a fucking can opener on the end of it somehow was taking a former 3-time semi-finalist to its wit's end, and it still lost. All it had to do was push it into the pit. Like, it was open. It was there. It was ready. And they just go, oh, look, a pit.
I
Dead.
think,
Why?
honestly,
what was the point?
If we're ranking
taking meds, dear.
if we're ranking robots that drove themselves into the pit, right? Kilohertz is still number 1. I think this is number 2, just because, like, with every other example I can think of, like, I don't know, Corkscrew got unlucky, for example, it's like Shredder or the Executioner or something dumb robot like that. They were near the pit at the time. Spam was like on one side of the arena. It went round, Spawn again, and then drove straight into it. There was no. It wasn't
No,
like
I don't
next
think
to
that's.
the.
It also opened the pit.
I don't think that's quite fair. Yeah, it opens the pit, drives round to take an attack at Spawn again. You know, Anderson, you've been to the last few Lego Wars. There's definitely been times where all of us have made questionable driving decisions and ended up down the pit.
Yes. When we're right next to it and it goes down, it hit the pit button, right? And a good 20 seconds goes by, mate. I'm sorry.
Also, at one point, it did.
Don't try and pass it off as it tries charging its Spawn again to shove it down the pit because it literally went round it. It drove around it. I still maintain to this day that the guy who was driving Spam at the time was slipped 50 quid by a producer to put the fucking audience out of their fucking misery because Jesus fucking went backwards on a pogo stick through the freaking Sahara Desert. It's one of those battles as well because again, it should be interesting to watch a favorite and a high robot losing
like a
to
Tornado
this
versus
village
Dietor,
now.
for example.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Iron Ore versus Bigger Brother. It's a big moment.
Exactly. It should be exciting to see a robot that's you know a favorite to do well losing to this outsider that, let's be real now, isn't exactly what everyone would consider a great or very well made machine. And it managed to take that interesting concept and somehow make it the most boring fucking fight in the world because Spam can't do anything. Like, it just.
Spam can't do anything. Neither can Spawn again.
No, because
I'm not going to try and defend this fight as a great battle or an amazing upset. Spawn again lucks out. It does.
Actually, I think in this case, I think it was
Spam snatched from the jaws of victory.
It did. It absolutely did.
No, I would argue this was an upset because Spawn again won in this case. It won. It felt like the underdog because it did its second flip of the episode, and it was when Spam wasn't on them. Sadly, they must have been having some major problems with that weapon because I think Spam drove up to at least like 3 different times onto the wedge, and at not one point did the flipper fire. I
will say my piece on Spam. I've already said my piece on Spam and other places on the internet over the years. However, I think it's a question of presentation. You know, we've heard from sort of interviews with like the likes of Aaron Hill in the last few years about how long it sort of took BattleBots to work out how to actually tell the audience what is going on inside the likes of Blip. And Robot Wars really didn't know. They build this robot as having dual weaponry, counting the rotating flywheels as weaponry when they're not. Do I think it's a well executed design? I don't, because those flywheels are on the outside of the robot. They're supposed to be powering that fork, but they're on the outside of the robot, and people can grab them and break them, which is what happened. And then they've lost power to the weapon. But I think in concept it's a bad idea for Series 6, yes. But for Series 3, 4, 5, which which is what the builder would have been watching going into this series, the armor on a lot of robots is still pretty paper thin. Even in this episode, the steel front wedge on Ming 3 is 1.5 mil mild steel. That's not a lot. Really not a lot. And is it going to affect the actual functionality of the motors, that sort of spam can opener type device? Probably not. But does it have the potential to tear open some thin metal armor on, like, I don't know, something like Razor Blade from Series 3 or something like that? I can see it.
I mean, that is true, but also
Yeah,
it does also
three,
use
maybe.
garden center plastic wheels, so I think it's a 10 out of 10 in my book.
I mean, so does Supernova. Let's not knock the garden center plastic wheels
And
here.
Pussycat used them. Pussycat used them.
Yeah.
No, but so did Twister, so therefore they're actually out of style now.
Yeah. Bin them.
Bin them.
No, I mean, I get where you're coming from, but the problem is, for a weapon like that to be effective, you need to have good aim with it. And spam was, again, another thing you can notice about it is it was awful to control. It literally threw itself in the pit. I mean, it doesn't get more hard to control than that. And at the end of the day, I don't know. It just, I mean, like I said, credit where credit's due. Ingenuity at its finest, fair play. But it just because you're unique doesn't mean you're good. And
Absolutely.
It's one of those situations where I'm you know me. I'm always respectful to people who have managed to build and enter a heavyweight machine. I've never backed down from that at all. I respect the guys who made Dr. Fist, for fuck's sake. But at the same time, maybe they should just take a step back and look at what they've built.
Yeah, they've tried a thing, but they've tried doing that thing on a public stage. So if it falls flat on its face, you're gonna get laughed at.
Handle the banter.
Potentially, maybe take this to a car park meet or something before you apply to Robot Wars. Learn how to drive it and learn if this thing is actually going to be any good. But props for trying. And what's the kind of robots we want to see on Robot Wars? Exactly. We want to see something that's unique and interesting. And for every 13 black, there's going to be a spam.
And for every Tiberius 3, there's a Ming 3. See what I did there? It's Tiberius at home.
Just before we quickly also say, as much as I laughed at him and sounded like I was ranting earlier, I will give the guy driving spam credit because he was a really funny guy, and fair play to him. I mean, he could have been really angry at his driving mistake, he just laughed about it and admitted he was a muppet. So fair play to him for that.
Actually, he was also funny. He was also funny in Series 2 as well when Payne completely shat the bed. Like they like you think they'd they're just chilling. Whereas they're just out of the competition because the robot didn't move. Like that's how chill they were.
Yeah.
So yeah, nothing changes.
And I will, on the topic of being quite funny, I will take a direct quote from Craig Charles' interview with the spam team captain after the Spawn Again fight. And the robot riding up the flipper, and he turns to me and says, "I was wondering, why aren't they flipping you off?"
I just liked his answer to the question, "Why did you drive down the pit?" He goes, I have absolutely no idea whatsoever. I'll be asking myself that a lot over the next couple of weeks.
I guess this is a good time to move on to Ming 3. I guess then.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ming 3. I've expressed before. I prefer Ming 2 out of the Ming trilogy, and we forget Dynasty exists. But no, Ming 3. It's not really changed much since Extreme in Series 5. To be honest with you. Actually, I'm looking at a difference.
I know Oliver's a big fan. I know Oliver's a big fan because he's from Somerset as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as I know, Andrew Cottrell is now living down in Plymouth in Devon, so he's made the right choice.
Oh, he owns a pub now, doesn't he?
You're being Plymouth is the right idea. Okay.
Over Somerset, it's still not great, but
he's living the best life. He has a pub,
Going to offend various people in the West Country, and I'll never be allowed to return.
Well, yeah, Ming 3, in my opinion, has done what everybody hopes to do in their retirement: settle down in somewhere in the West Country and spend your days in a pub. That's literally what he's done.
I think Ming 3 in its career got beaten twice by a spinner and got its wheels knackered. In fact, actually, the first time they got ripped off, I believe.
They did.
In Extreme 1, and then they come back and then they've got to get Supernova.
But of the Ming spinner fights, I do think this is, as far as Ming's performance goes, a better one.
Oh yeah, because Hitler Disc did basically, they took off both their wheels, which is the worst.
They didn't
case
really
scenario.
have an answer.
No. They tried.
Whereas this time, the wheel got pinned, yeah, but it got pinned after, from what I could tell, a pretty glancing blow from Supernova. I mean, I want to commend the driving of both the Roboteers here, because Ming was constantly trying to stay faced up to Supernova, and the big hits were sending Supernova flying across the arena. So at least for the first minute of the fight, it was really quite entertaining. And yeah, it was just an unlucky glancing blow from Supernova, but Supernova was really trying to be as precise as it could and getting the hits around the side rather than on the wedge. And as soon as Ming started losing mobility, it was all over it.
Yeah, one thing actually.
I think it really, of the two robots, it's the best display I think that you were probably going to get.
Oh yeah, I'm not like braying it for being beaten up. It's just a weird coincidence happened twice. In a row for it.
If I had a trophy every time Ming was defeated by a spinner.
And if it's out of 2 pennies, which is weird, happened twice. But no, actually, one thing I've got to say, there is something slightly painful about seeing a wheel disattached from the tyre in the centre.
Yes.
Like, not being, ripped off entirely. Like, the only time I can think of it happening was against bloody, was it Daisy Chopper? Where it happened because it got flipped over mildly, and then somehow that broke the wheel.
Yeah.
Which is the worst thing. I think I'd rather have my robot beaten up by Supernova than lifted slightly by Griffin, but yeah, it's not about comparison, but yeah, it's just, there's something visceral about it. Like, there's some things in Robot Wars, even like the amount of times you see robots get destroyed or beaten up in certain ways. Like, again, Hypnodisc getting axed in the disc when it was against Pussycat in the grand final. That's painful to watch, And that's another one for me, because losing a wheel is one thing, but having a wheel gutted and then pinned in is just kind of sad, really. But it put up a good fight, I have to say. It
also received one of the best floor flips of the series. In my opinion.
It did.
Great.
Yeah. That was a really good flip.
Genuinely, this was fight of the episode for me.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, because both robots participated in the fight, and it felt like an actual fight rather than, I don't know, nothing much happening.
Talking of participation, do we want to talk about Ming's first round fight?
I mean, it did something. It was there.
It did something, but I was watching the Crusher go down on. Yeah, I was watching the Crusher go down on Spam, and it really wasn't getting that far in.
No, in fact, I wouldn't say Ming 3 Crusher was ever that devastating, though. It was more of a grabber than an outright crusher, in my experience. But also Spam had quite a lot of... It's so annoying, I wish I could have swapped Spam and Tiberius round. So Tiberius could have gone through Spam. But...
Oh, that would have been nice, yeah.
And also getting the shot through Hot... Because also they did have a nibble on Hot Pants at one point, and it didn't really do anything either. It was kind of the centre of where the axe was, though, in fairness. But... Yeah, it was definitely probably the most active participant in that fight, because I mean, Hassock's hog was spinning around in a circle, Hot Pants died in 1 second, Spam wasn't doing anything. So it really had no competition of who was the most active robot in that fight. But at least it tried. It went in. You know, I'm not going to complain about that in the slightest. I'd rather a robot be active than doing nothing.
Also, I'd just like to be your friendly reminder that Ming 3 is still technically a trophy holder in Robot Wars history, yet Hypnodisc and Wild Thing aren't.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's sad to hear.
Thanks.
Glad to be of service. Glad to be of service.
Also, I gotta say another thing.
Oh, Dominated 2 as
My
well.
last
Never
real
won a
comment
terahertz. I
on
never won a
Ming
Robot Wars
is-
trophy.
I was gonna say also.
My last real comment on Ming is Andrew's interview with Craig right at the end of the fight with Supernova, because he makes an interesting observation about how things are diverging into kinetic weapons and art bots, and one can't really live with the other. Which it's interesting that we are 20-something years on from that, and we're still kind of having that discussion with Quantum at BattleBots this year, but Quantum went 4-0 and then made a stupid driving mistake.
And then the Ribots came in. Actually, there was one quote from JP in this episode that's, I mean, obviously it doesn't really apply to Supernova in this case because it's a much better machine than any of its previous robots, which we'll get onto in a sec. But like it's just the quote of both teams have experience on Robot Wars, but no experience of great success. That's a bit of a burn. Especially with the Ming team, who have only had... How many wins have they actually had in the main series? They have had...
He's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong. But yeah, more so... I mean, at this point, he was right with Supernova as well, because... have we got anything else to talk about Ming 2? Or we...
Yeah.
We'll talk about Supernova in that case, because... Yeah, Supernova's past
Ming 2,
history...
yeah, let's talk about Ming 2. Ming's much more interesting. Let's go with Ming 2.
Ming 2 is a much better robot to talk about, without doubt.
But yeah, Supernova's pedigree prior to being Supernova was a thing, because there was Oblivion, a robot that if it
Craig
was
Charles seemed to forget about it.
yeah, I mean it was a robot that if it got flipped upside down where the light was on, it would have short-circuited the entire robot, which is kind of ironic given its fight. But then in Series 3 they died in the pinball, and then in Series 4 they died because Sawpoint drove over them in the first 5 seconds of the fight. And then luckily in Series 5, when they actually brought Supernova for the first time, they had to go against Behemoth, and then got shagged by Matilda. And the whole top plate went flying off it.
So it's shagged by Matilda. Hassock's hog is
Jealous.
aroused right now.
Jealous, I'd say, right now. Because he got the shag and it didn't. But now Supernova, man, series... Like... I know they didn't bring it in for the reboot, which I understand, but I miss the Superman logo on it. I love it. It's just so aesthetically pleasing, the blue colour on it, compared to the... I don't know. I mean, I get why the Series 9 version's like that, but I'm still a fan of classic Supernova all the way. Always will be.
It makes the team merch very easy for them.
Oh, it does, yeah, they can just wear a Superman shirt, can't they? Which actually, no joke, I'm actually wearing a Superman shirt right now. As I'm recording.
There you go.
I didn't even think of that. But yeah. No, I love Supernova, and their performance in this heat was definitely something.
It's a big step up this year. Big step up this year.
It was.
You know, all of that experience finally paying off. And again, as you say, not really particularly notable up to that point. Craig even says in one of the interviews, "Oh, you're the new kids on the block, aren't you?" And that, no, we've been here. We were here last year as well.
This is our fourth series, but
we've been around since Series 2, mate.
We made a heat final for Christ's sake. Well, okay.
Yeah, I think Craig at that point was definitely after some more special stuff, if you know what I mean, because he was off his rocker there. But there we go, bless him.
But Supernova definitely was I'd say one of the unluckiest heat finalists in this series by far.
Absolutely.
I mean, who else is there that's in contention for heat finals of Series 6 that was very unlucky? I mean, there's probably a few I'm missing right off the bat, like I'm thinking of, but Supernova definitely always stands out for me. When I think of like Series 6 robots I could have done, especially because I know in Series 7 they don't even get past the first round. Makes it much more sad that the next time they actually do anything semi-memorable is Series 9. Because Series 8 they go out in the first round as well, after like rolling into the pit on their own spinner, which was funny, but also not exciting to see, admittedly.
They have a half decent third world championship.
Oh no, that was good though.
Yes.
Actually, was it that, or was it Series 7 where they completely ruined Circular Lot's tracks?
Series 7.
That was Series 7.
Storm 2 pushed them into it.
Ah, right, because that's probably the most damage a house robot has taken, like from a competitor.
It was the most expensive damage a house robot took, at least back in today.
Because it completely eviscerated the tracks, didn't it, from what I can remember, and like the wheels inside as well.
Yeah, the track was completely mullered. Yeah,
Jesus.
Absolutely. I mean, it was what is technically known as knackered. But yeah, Supernova in Series 6, it's what I. It's another Fluffy and Disco Inferno, in all honesty.
Yeah.
It has really good series, gets you really excited about it. It's this really cool slot of damage and wrecks things, and it's great fun. And then it just dies in every other fucking competition it competes in, apart from one side of it, which it does really well in. Because because it did well in the third world championship, but it lost in the first round of 2 main competitions. Disco Inferno lost in the first round of 2 main competitions, made a heat final, and won a side event, the Annihilator. And Fluffy did well in one series, and then just went downhill slowly, but also did well in the UK versus Germany special. It's the trifecta of spinners that should be good but didn't live up to their potential.
So it's like the spinner version of like the Canopier effect.
I don't think it's unfair. It's fair to call Supernova unreliable though, because electrically it was still working fine at the end of the heat final. It was just mechanically the bottom plate had dropped off or something had gotten it high centered on itself.
They'd also lost drive on one side, which in Series 6 would have been a KO.
Okay.
There was something
really
kind
hard to tell at that point.
There was something really disheartening.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, the base plate falling off was also a bit of an issue. But then again, if the base plate bottomed out, that's kind of a design issue.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I built a robot and its base sunk down and raised its wheels off the floor, I would say, oh, that was unreliable because it didn't do what it was supposed to do. But that's just me being a tedious prick, I suppose.
There is something a bit disheartening though about like you think, oh, Spawn Again's been very unreliable this entire heat. The one time it decides to work is when Supernova decides to break. Because of course.
And even then, it barely works still.
Oh, that's it. Oh yeah, because I was actually going to mention. I forgot to mention, but in the spam fight, I made a note actually. Is that in the first half, like the first 30 seconds, it was driving fine, and then all of a sudden, it's like someone just flicked a switch and went, no, Spawn Again. Now you can time to suck, and it just stopped working out of nowhere. And Spawn Again did this probably about in the first 20 seconds, except unfortunately the first 20 seconds was all it needed.
You say somebody flicked a switch. They probably even did because they were talking about the problems with solenoids in the starter motors that were causing the interference. So little solenoids or electromagnets that would just go on and off. Yeah, I mean it probably literally was something as simple as that. Yeah. Is it one of the most entertaining upsets of all time? Because coming into this fight, let's be honest, having seen the rest of the heat, Spawn Again winning is an upset, even though technically at the start of the heat it's not. If you're following me,
No, I follow you.
Yeah, it's again it was unexpected. It wasn't a boring cakewalk of one robot trouncing everything in the heat. Was it great? No, it wasn't great, but I've been there as a roboteer where you show up and your robot doesn't work for one reason or another, slightly beyond your control, and you can only face the robots that are there. Does it make for great television? No, but is this a Series 3 Heat P of Robot Wars? I would argue not. It's not one of the better heats of this series, but I do think it's a little overhated.
Yeah, I mean, Anderson, do you agree with that, or would you say you're not still not a fan of it?
I can certainly see where the young one is coming from.
The young one.
In that regard, and to be honest, yeah, it actually raised the point actually that I didn't actually consider was that technically I guess you could look at this as an upset victory, and it wasn't just cut and dry. Because that was, I guess, one thing that was an issue with Series 6 was, for the most part, the Heat finals were very one-sided. And that's something I've only just realised, actually. Is that, a lot of the Heat finals were very one-sided, including this one. But it's not the one-sided you expected, because obviously we've seen Spawn again do bugger all Heat and somehow crawl through, yet Supernova's dominated it and got through.
Yeah,
so obviously you're going in and you're expecting Supernova. In fact, I think this was the only time in the entire series where Jonathan Pierce actually predicted the robot that wasn't the seed to win the Heat final. Because this was the series where Jonathan Pierce did the predictions before each Heat final. And even Terahertz and Panic Attack, he said he thought Panic Attack could still do it.
No gold
but
Panic Attack.
In this one, he didn't.
That is a point, actually. Yeah,
Panic Attack gold. Yeah.
Because also, this is the one problem I have with Series 6. I mean,
so I can see where Oliver was coming from in that regard, but it's still fucking terrible.
Yeah, it's also annoying because we could have had another new robot in the semi-finals.
Yeah, and we know that Spawn Again's going on to yet more terrible fights.
I mean, in the next series, it blows up. So, which is actually one of the only series where actually
that is
it works consistently.
Had Supernova gotten through this fight, how do we think it would have gone?
I don't think it probably would have. It probably would have had some reliability issues somewhere.
Well, that sounds like a what-if situation.
Note it down. Against another newbie in Terahertz.
No, I'm joking.
That is an interesting point though. Like, how far would it have gotten in the next series? Because who was spawning in against in the semi-finals? That's been so long.
So it was against Terahertz. It lost the fight to Terahertz, and then it was in the Redemption losers melee with Bigger Brother and Hit the Disc.
Ooh, that's a big oof. I think. Not that I don't think it would have done badly, but that's quite a stacked set.
Yeah, I still see it losing both of those. I think
because Terahertz was decently well armored by Series 6.
No.
So, I could see it not. I don't know. It depends.
It
really.
would have been more entertaining.
Oh, more entertaining, absolutely, yeah. So yes, I guess that is a good way of segueing into the real winner of the Heat. Not in minds, not in our hearts, but factually, Spawn Again.
I think you could put about 400 quotation marks around the word "real" there, but okay.
They did technically win. I mean, yeah. It's kind of funny, really, because in Series 5, okay, it did start, having problems in the semi-finals, but at least it got through the Heat and actually beat every robot before dying.
Yeah, in its heat, it was amazing. I mean, it got that. It dominated Hydra. It got Evolution out the arena, and I think it was about 18 seconds or something like that. It was very quick, one of the quickest fights of the series. And then again, they won, flipped, and KO'd Dietor almost immediately. And then they come back this year and they do nothing.
Yeah, a lot of people forget until Gravity against Dan Tomke. I think they had the fastest Uta. I think, didn't they?
I think they're the fastest Uta. Yeah, they're not the fastest battle, but definitely the fastest Uta.
Yeah, and then Series 7, and up until the Heat final, where they just kind of exploded. They weren't doing that bad in Series 7 either. Just Series 6. I don't know what happened.
It's the difficult second album for them, isn't it? And then they kind of almost in Robot Wars they end up almost flattering to deceive, even though the robot is obviously very capable. One thing or another happens, the reliability issues that they had in Series 5, the technical difficulties they have this year, and then the exploding RAMs in Series 7. They never quite get that momentum going that they need.
I mean, let's not forget though, this robot did 4 flips, and I think only 2 of them actually made a difference.
Yeah, well, one of them was on a dead robot.
Yep.
One of them missed. but scared their opponent into driving into the pit. And then the two in this fight, one of them actually did something. It flipped Supernova, and then the other one sort of half flipped it because it sort of missed it a little bit, but caught it on the edge, and that was it.
I mean, you say scared it into the pit, but Spam was invincible. I don't know what they were scared of necessarily, but yeah, it was. I mean, granted, they did about the same amount of flips in. Actually, they probably did more flips in their Series 5 heat because they did flip Hydra quite a lot of times. Actually, now I think about it. Plus, they had to do 2 flips in Evolution alone. But yeah, I do really feel bad for this version of Spawn again, and like I'm not gonna like blame the team because that'd be that's unfair, But it does kind of like sour the experience of Spawn again for this entire series because even if it won the heat, you kind of like you're not gonna get very far unless things just suddenly improve out of nowhere.
On paper, if you're coming into this series from Series 5, you see Spawn again gets through to the series semi-finals, and you think, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. But in reality, it's a bit of a slog, and they kind of cheese it, and they just have the right opponents at the right time, the right little swing of luck in their direction, and it happens with robot combat. Things go wrong. I think in this case they were saying it was electrical interference from the starter motors. Just things that you don't even consider potentially being a problem until you get into the arena. And you just have to kind of make the best of it. And sometimes making the best of it means you get further than really you ought to deserve. And that feels bad for other teams who've put in the work and had working robots show up. But it is the luck of the draw with robot combat. It just happens.
Yeah, I mean the Razor team knew that from experience.
Bitter experience.
Yeah.
At the same time, as much as it annoys me, the heat final against Supernova, as much as it pains me to say it, it was a legit win. At least it wasn't like in the first one. It was more of a case of Spawn again was just left alone while Supernova took out the other two. In its second fight, it was because its opponent drove down the pit. That's the weakest win of the lot. And in this one, at least it was on the attack. At least it did get flips in, and I think it was actually one of the flips it got on Supernova that dislodged its wheel chain or whatever it was that made it die on one side. So technically, it was a legit win. It's just
it's also
so boring.
Also, it's not very often that, especially in this era of robot combat, there's not often you get many flippers who actually immobilize the robot, not just Uter it or flip it over and it can't self-right. Like, there actually was a KO, which obviously we're very unlucky with the base plate kind of falling off and Supernova just kind of stuck in place. But I actually, honestly, in the later series of Robot Wars, I didn't see basically any of Series 7. I somehow missed Series 5. Don't ask me how I did that. I saw Extreme, but didn't see Series 5. But I did actually watch a bit of Series 6, and I specifically remember being so disheartened when Supernova lost. Because it's probably the most vivid memory of Series 6 I have.
It is disheartening. It really is disheartening because they've put in all the work, and competition like that, it isn't always fair, and sometimes the hard work is not rewarded, and it's really tough. But all it takes sometimes is the robot to do just what it needs to do at exactly the right moment and no further. I mean, a good modern-ish example would be 2018 Bombshell from BattleBots. Flops hard the whole season, gets into the play-in rumble on name recognition alone, works well enough for that fight and the fight against Tombstone to make it to round of 8, and then goes back to form. It worked in 2 fights, but it made it one of the best 8 robots in the series, technically.
Or another, I guess to a lesser extent, another example, Minotaur versus Cobalt in the most recent BattleBots season. Cobalt dominating the fight the whole way through, but then Minotaur gets driven properly for the last 10 seconds, and that's enough for it to win by KO.
There's a sense of failing upwards with this heat.
And if it's the other way round, a robot that's been struggling for the whole fight that suddenly pulls off a win, but you feel like they've worked hard and they've deserved it, Bigger Brother versus Hypnodisc, there's that nice cathartic release, but it does go both ways.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, there's a few sad examples, but I think one from the classics I still remember slightly is Hardvark losing in Series 3, where like
Oh,
Henry was
that.
doing nothing, and
Oh.
then the last 10 seconds it broke down.
It's because of that fight that I actually hate everyone whose name is Henry. I don't actually. I don't know anyone called Henry apart from my Hoover.
Oh, Strang.
Oh yes,
Henry
yes, I do.
Strang.
Yes, I do. Well, I've been in the same room as him. That's about as far as that went, I think. But I could be wrong. Like, honestly, I don't know. I've got you know me. I'm an old man. I've got no memory left. So
That is true. But I think the theme of this episode, especially in Spawn Again's case, is failing upwards. You know, like it's kind of the evil weevil tactic in the football: do nothing and yet somehow win the whole thing. Well, okay, apart from the Heat final, Spawn actually did actually. Again, I agree with you actually, Anza. Yeah, the Heat final was actually earned. As much as it was kind of it was a little bit lucky. It was still earned, and a little bit of luck is in Robot Wars. So I'm not going to complain about that really.
and incredibly lackluster.
Oh
Because
yeah,
it was
oh yeah, not
such a boring Heat final.
not entertaining, but
it had, and again, it had the potential to be really good. Either Spawn again wakes up properly, and we get a flipping good time, or Supernova absolutely rips it a new one. Either way, you're in for a good spectacle with two, decent machines, and instead Spawn again wakes up just enough to do just the right amount, and then shits itself inside out again.
the biggest frustrating thing about Spawn Again in this particular series is we saw what it could do in Series 5. It was a powerhouse in its heat. And like if it was on Dan Tompkins Chaos 2 kind of ability in this heat, it probably would obviously earned the win more than likely. Or at least if it had lost it'd been much more respectable. But also the fact that it was going against Terahertz in the semi-finals, that would have been such a better fight than what we got, and then because they actually would have a good chance of even having to go against Terahertz, But the fact that it's half working and just got axed to death, it's a bit of a tragedy, really, with this robot.
I've just checked my notes and I was just thinking, is there anything more that I have to say about Spawn Again? And all of my notes for Spawn Again are from throughout the episode already, so we've kind of just covered it all. I have nothing on the Heat final. As we've been recording this, though, a thought has struck me.
Go on.
And that is, I think this episode is brought down by Spawn Again. If Spawn Again was working, it would obviously be a much better Heat. The lineup's pretty solid otherwise, but also I think specifically the fact that Spawn Again wins the Heat final that leaves the sour taste in your mouth. And I think what tells me that, and I'm going to jump ahead in your podcast series, James, is actually the next Heat along is Heat I, because we've got kind of a similar setup in the sense that you've got a really underwhelming robot that manages to get through to the second round in a kill, but the team are quite nice. And a large group battle full of barely working robots and one full of quite entertaining robots that do all right, but somebody's got to go out. You've got your Heat semi-finals where the underwhelming robot goes out, and you've got the promising seed or promising new returning robot in Terahertz and the underwhelming seed in the new Panic Attack. And you get to the Heat final and you get the enjoyment of seeing the promising newcomer beat, or newish comer in Terahertz and Supernova's case, beat the underwhelming seed. I think if they'd gone the other way, this Heat might not be looked down on so much.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, actually, there's an example of a Heat earlier in this series where I think the titular robots of it actually did make up for it, like the Chaos 2 Dan Tomkia Heat, because that has fucking Dr. Fist in it. And Mighty Mouse, and I still like it.
Yeah.
Also it does help that Dr. Fist does go out in the first round, but Mighty Mouse still goes. Mighty Mouse doesn't get to the final and bullshits where it does in Series 7. It does get knocked out.
I would like to say this though, because I genuinely mean this. As much as we've ragged on Spawn again in this Heat, and as annoying as it is, and fine, whatever, you gotta still love the team because they at least admitted it. Fair play, they were having a horrible time that series. It was all going wrong, And I think honestly, the Spawn team, the Team Scuttlebots, they're probably one of my. I put them in a list of most underrated teams in Robot Wars because they were always good fun, always good sports. They always admitted when their robot didn't do well, and they felt bad, but obviously them's the rules sort of thing. And yeah, I feel for them in a way because a lot of people sort of had a bit of a lot of people were like, oh, they should. It's like, well, it's not their fault, it's how it goes. But
you just have a tough robot event sometimes, and it's just unfortunate for them that it's the one that's filmed and broadcast to millions of people and put up on the internet for posterity for all time.
Yeah, and also they got into every fight as well. They didn't just like, oh, we're gonna pull out of this fight and can't do it. They got into every single fight they're in, even if it was half working.
Yeah, they worked hard to get that thing. I mean, they actually didn't. They listed the amount of damage and problems that they had after the first fight to fill up there, and I mean, Jesus, it is one of those the list's going out the door kind of thing. So the fact that they were able to, fix all those issues and at least get a half working machine into the arena to fight a biscuit tin with a pokey thing on the front of it, fair play,
and still win it,
somehow. Can I just say, imagine if Spam had won. That, I mean, I think honestly that would have made the heat a bit better because, and this is not me being horrible to Spawn again, but it would have been a big upset, which everyone loves a cheeky upset, and then we would have seen Spam get absolutely mullered by Supernova. Win-win.
We would.
It would have been that would have made it a much better heat if you ask me. But
absolute success.
I mean, sometimes a butterfly's wings change the effect of the world, and sometimes it's just a driving error. You muppet.
Yeah. But at least out of all driving errors with the pit, it wasn't kilohertz. That still is the most embarrassing one. As much as John Reed is a great driver, and I've seen some of his fights in BattleBots are really well driven, but I'm never letting that one go. I'm sorry, John.
I think I'll end my quote unquote defense of this episode on this, in that it's not a great episode. It's not. I don't think it's one of the worst episodes that Robot Wars as a whole has to offer, because I think Series 6 as a whole, even if there isn't massive, amazing standout moments like in Series 4 and Series 5, once you get sort of semi-finals and final stages, it's just consistently decent. Series 6, and in a series where most heats are at least above average, it brings the average up. So a heat like this, that I don't think is actually that terrible, just stands out a bit more.
Yeah, I agree with that, really, because in the earlier series you do get a lot more consistent bad heats. Like, Series 2 has a lot of stinkers. Series 3 has two or three very infamous episodes, like at least two of them anyway. And Series 4 has like those odd episodes where you're just kind of like, yeah, God, like the Evil Weevil heat or whatever, those kind of heats.
As I mentioned in my Robot Wars Guru episode review of this heat, plugging for the win, link in the description below. Rage Shadow Legends are indeed not my sponsor. I did say, whilst it's a bad heat, and whilst it's the worst heat of Series 6, in my opinion, personally, if it was on the list of worst episodes of all time, it would be very low on that list. I mean, I don't even think it would maybe even make it, to be honest. I mean, it would be close, but I don't even know if it would make my top 10 worst episodes ever list.
Maybe honorable mention worthy.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. That's probably a video I have to make one day, isn't it?
I mean, I'm making that video at some point. Don't worry. When I get through all these reviews, I'm making that guaranteed. I'm making that. And I'm not sure if this would. If it did make in the top 10, it would definitely be at like number 10 specifically, but I don't think it'd get any higher than that. But that's the kind of thing I'd have to rewatch stuff and kind of go, is there anything worse? Because Heat P Series 3 is kind of like my standard for bad heat.
And again, I think if this was in another series with more worse heats in it, if this was in a series with a few more episodes like Series 3 Heat P, it would maybe get glossed over a bit. But because it is really the weakest episode, now I'm going to say weakest rather than worst episode of Series 6, it just gets a bit more attention. Spam was not particularly well described, so that becomes a point of contention. And Spawn again managed to cheese its way through through the fights that it did have, and that was a bit unsatisfying. That's, I think, really the worst that can be said of it.
Yeah, I'm still not a fan of it, but I'm not gonna call it a terrible episode. There are bits that redeem it. It's yeah, but it's like you mentioned, Series 6 is relatively consistent, so the bad episodes stand out a lot more.
It was definitely one of the heats of all time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, it's also one of the heats of all time. The next heat, because we have Gold Panic Attack.
Oh, God.
The best version of Panic Attack, obviously.
Am I a guest on that one as well?
You don't have to be, but if you want to be.
I mean, I don't know if I can handle it. And I mean,
well, but it does. Terahertz is in it though. Terahertz is at least in it. But yeah, next time it's gonna be a great fun time then as well. Of course. Honestly, a decent variety of robots next time. Good, bad, and forgettable. I mean, yeah, Ripteron was a thing, but
I mean, Kim Davies is definitely forgotten.
I think he wants to forget this one.
I actually spoke to him at RoboNerd 2022 was the last one I was at. No, 2021. Sorry, was the last one I was at. And he actually turned around and said that after this heat, he stripped everything that was still usable out of it, and then threw the rest of it in a skip. That was just there, okay, and then just sodded off.
They gave it the worm treatment, basically.
Yes, basically.
Just threw it into a skip.
Kim Dave was just doing it before it was cool, all right?
I mean, at least I don't feel too bad about making fun of it then. Because I mean, if he doesn't like it, then I'm kind of like, yeah, I've got a little bit of leeway for this.
He was happy to admit it was dog shit. Yes, happy to admit that. He admitted it on camera. He literally turned around and said it on camera. We're not happy with it.
Now I'm just picturing Panic Attack with a lime green ooh face on the front, and I hate it.
Like those forks look like kind of plastic toys to me. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, they were weirdly chunky.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We've got that little to talk about with Spawn again that we're already. Well, fuck it. Let's just start doing the next heat.
Yeah. Okay. This is Heat I review.
Yeah,
No, of course we'll get into more details with that, and also the fact that Sabretooth has a nice wheel on it. Good times had by all, and also of course don't forget A-Kill. They can crush a strawberry, the most powerful crusher of all time.
Oliver's favourite robot, if I remember correctly.
Oh, it is absolutely. Which isn't related to.
I'm mellowing on it. It did frustrate me, but having watched back that group battle, it moves, and the other robots in the fight do not. They really deserve to be moving because they look so much better. But again, we're going on reviewing another heat that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That isn't even part of this podcast because that's the nature of this episode.
Yeah, so
I can't be angry with it because the team knew it was rubbish. Sorry, go on.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's dumb, but I guess before we wrap up, I have to do the obligatory. Anderson, where can we find you on YouTube?
You can find me on the Anderson9132 YouTube channel. There, you will see videos of me, a near 30-year-old man, playing with Robot Wars toys and ranting about a show that ended twice now. The fact I'm not on any special lists once lost my own father £50.
That is the best summation of your channel ever.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Also, you said you weren't sponsored, but I think you're sponsored by Carvery, aren't you?
Oh, for God's sake! Yeah, the Toby. Yeah, they
you got to load up that plate.
Sponsor me. I've got to load up that plate, mate.
And
you've got to load up that plate because the pitch is looking lovely today, lads.
And Oliver, where can we find you on the interwebs?
I'm currently of no fixed abode on YouTube. The next place you're most likely to see me is David of Smeg's channel, where I will be part of Lego Wars, as will Anderson. I am working on a new YouTube channel, but I will keep that under wraps for now. If you want to find out about that, go and follow my Facebook page, Team Motte Bailey Robotics.
Brilliant. Cannot wait to hear about the YouTube channel when it comes out. That sounds really fun. But yes, if people don't realise, this has been recorded about almost a week after the first bit because internet was fun. But this will finally be out now this week, so that is good. And that was Heat H. Next is Heat I, where we talk about a Gold Panic Attack, as we mentioned, and other robots were included. So, I'm Jim Dramatic, signing off, and I was joined by Anderson9132.
Thanks for having me again. It's been a long 3 years, I think, since I've been on one of these, so it's been good fun, and I look forward to doing another one in the future.
And also joined by Oliver from Team Motte Bailey.
Thank you for having me, James. This has been fun. I'd love to do this again sometime.
Thank you very much.
With a more fun episode.
We'll try and get a better one for you next time, don't worry. Anderson will never get a good episode, so it's fine. See you later, folks.
At this point, to be honest.
Look, he's used to having bad episodes at this point. This is why we got him the carer.
Shut up.
Oh, we can go on. Do you understand?